Good morning. Welcome back to a couple of Aussie acres. That's right. That was interesting. So yesterday I thought, I'm going to do a video on twilight. You know, with those vlogs, I don't really see them much anymore, but where people would take the audience through a day in the life of. And so I thought, I'll do that. Go back to the old days. And I'm sure people still do it, but they don't come up on my feed. And anyway, it wasn't that interesting, so I've canned it. However, it made me think about, but as I was sort of talking yesterday, or rambling, either way, depends on how you look at it, this idea of what is a homesteader. And it started to make me think, well, am I a homesteader or a psychologist who really likes gardening? So that's what I kind of wanted to talk about a bit today. And I'm also going to bring up a book that has helped us, I guess, move a bit towards self-sufficiency. It was a book by David Holmgren, who was one of the founders of permaculture. I'll talk a bit more about that a little later. So I'll also take you guys on my morning walk and to do my chores with me while we talk. So look, I'm not great with multitasking, so I'm going to see how I go. I'm going to feed the chickens first and dodge some asparagus while I'm there. Hello! Roy, my man, you're out. This is Roy. I think I've introduced you to Roy before. I love Roy. Roy doesn't love me. It's a problem we have with this relationship. It's unrequited love. Hi. Hello. Come on, Roy, you gonna get fed or what? Come on, Roy, you gonna get fed or what? Yes, you. So I looked up the definition of homesteading, and it actually mentioned that the idea of, I guess, living frugally, which is honestly at the moment that's not what we're doing, or as well as being self-sufficient and living off the land. So I was sort of thinking about living frugally. It's interesting that was in the definition. As far as frugality goes, look, I'm actually naturally more inclined to be frugal, and I actually enjoy it, sort of like I see it as a challenge. And but my partner is not at all. So I feel like he's sort of moved more towards being a little more frugal, and I've kind of moved more towards his style a little bit more, which I guess is what happens when you live with someone for years. So I don't know how frugal we are. It feels like this year that hasn't happened whatsoever. And then coming to this idea of self-sufficiency, and I think we have tried to focus on developing self-sufficiency here, but it's been a bit of a work in progress because what we found, I mean, there was solar, but it really didn't do anything. Like, it really didn't do much. Then we also, although there were a lot of water tanks, none of them were actually connected, and so we couldn't even figure out how the system actually worked because it was so disjointed. Tanks didn't fill up, there were tanks all over the place, and there really didn't seem to be much of a system at all. And I should quickly mention this idea of retrofitting to become more self-sufficient, or self-sustainable, I guess. And one of the books, so it's called Retro Suburbia, The Downshifter's Guide to a Resilient Future. So this particular book, it was really useful to read. So it was looking at more, I guess, maybe urban sustainability or self-sufficiency, but certainly you could take a lot of the principles that were explored in the book and adopt it to any property. One section focused on how to retrofit homes and properties to be more sustainable, so like solar power, creating more sustainable ways of managing waste. I mean, he's much more what I would say hardcore than what we are, but he also explores sort of like more passive design strategies, retrofitting existing buildings, etc., and like rethinking spaces. I don't know that we could really retrofit this, you know, like as in change the spaces. Maybe outside, yes, but not inside. So we put on solar, we got a battery, so we've become more self-sufficient in that way. It's not 100%. I also have an EV. When I bought the EV at the time, while I was certainly looking at both the economy of it, because they're quite, you know, it's really cheap to run, but also too the fact that we could charge it off grid, but actually we don't. So I charge the EV at night, and that's on the grid. There's not enough in the battery to charge the car, and I charge it fully. And the only time you can do it really is during the day, when rates are a lot higher if you end up on taking from the grid. But also again, in trying to produce enough energy for the house and then also producing enough energy to charge the car, it actually doesn't work. That's actually pretty disappointing to realise. So we've got a 13 kilowatt system, and yeah, even with that and the battery, it's not enough. Who figured? Not me. Good morning, ladies. You're hungry? Hang on, ladies. Ooh. We use these metal bins, but to keep the rats out. Man, we've got a lot of rats around here. Breakfast time. I was reading an article or a blog, something like that. It was a couple who were living off-grid completely, and they had an EV, it was smaller than mine, and she found, I mean, you can use the granny charger, which is just plugging into the wall. For my car, that takes then about 3 days to charge the car, which is not quite enough. Look, I have done it in the past when I first got the car, but I haven't really done it since. And what I read of the article, she still wasn't able to, with the small car, be completely self-sufficient and generate enough energy, and she'd go and use a public charger as well. So look, it'd be interesting to see, you know, if at some stage I get any comments on this video, what other people's experiences are. Have they developed a system that you can actually be much more self-sufficient with an EV? Yeah, just a final comment on that book. I won't go too much into it. Maybe in a later video I'll do it. But it was really, I just quite like the theme of resilience and adaptability. It sort of takes me back to this question of, am I a homesteader? I guess what we're trying to do here is work towards greater self-sufficiency. So is that my homesteading? I think so. You know, it's a lot harder these days to be self-sufficient when you've been on and working with, you know, systems for so long, going to the grocery store, you know, being on grid with electricity, as well as, you know, using water. And so, and also like firewood, for example, we do collect some around here, but it's not enough to be sustainable. Look, I would like to be doing a bit less psychology and more homesteading, to focus on a little bit more of that. That's something that I would really like to do. At the moment, yes, I'm probably more psychologist. He likes gardening. So yeah, I think, you know, we've done the, you know, looking at water collection, which is really important in Australia. We've also obviously focused on solar energy as a way of moving towards self-sufficiency. By the way, trying to retrofit, we haven't done it ourselves, right? So it's not been DIY. The problem with that is it's expensive. We've also looked at waste management here. So we have a septic waste system here, and it has a filter. So we can use that water to use it on the garden, so which is what we've done. Because it's, I guess, considered to be black water, we can't use it, or we're not supposed to use it on, you know, I wouldn't water my veggies with it. And in fact, sometimes we get caught in it because you know, spouts quite a bit of water, and you know, you often hear in the backyard someone screaming poo water. So we certainly don't want to be using it. So I'm coughing because I was using straw on the weekend, and it's clearly still irritating me. I guess as far as waste management goes, looking into trying to manage more like garden waste, I guess, and you know, compost it and those sorts of things. I'm using straw bales to build a bit of a compost system, and I'm just going to use horse manure mainly, some plant refuse. So I'm just trying to, oh there we go, so get you out the sun. Horse manure and garden refuse and straw. So that's what I'm going to focus on. So if I think about, you know, am I a homesteader or am I just a psychologist masquerading as a homesteader? Perhaps is it more about a mindset and an ongoing commitment to sustainability, and you know, living locally, buying more locally. We found a farm that sells beef and lamb. We don't really need lamb, but beef at the local market, and they produce it themselves. And now, so we've tried out a box, which was cheaper than the supermarket, but not as cheap as like a side, for example. So that's what we're going to do next time, is do a side. Now, a side of beef is huge, so we're going to have to make sure we've got enough room in the freezer. And I think that's the issue for, yeah, I think people could do that, you know, in an urban setting. I mean, why not? You do have to think about storage, obviously, because the side of a cow is huge anyway. So the sun is moving, so I have to move. So yeah, maybe it's a commitment to sustainability, even if you aren't 100% off grid and, you know, aren't not completely living off the land. You know, I have watched videos where people seem to. I don't think we'll ever 100% get there, because we do eat things that are processed, and we've got, you know, kids, and they also eat processed things, and they don't really like veggies that much either. And it is actually, I think for me as a vegetable grower, I'm also a work in progress with my skills and developing those. Learning what works here in my microenvironment and what doesn't. I mean, I don't know, what do you guys think? You know, what do you see as homesteading? Because I think you can still homestead even, you know, on an urban block. I mean, why not? I might talk about next time, or in a later video, this idea of, you know, small acreage in an urban block and being a homesteader on that versus on a larger property, the pros and cons, what you can achieve and what you can't in a smaller space, because there are limitations for sure. And if you're also wanting to produce something off the land, there are certainly limitations there. So I think that, you know, while self-sufficiency, like full self-sufficiency, is a goal that we're always wanting to move towards, I think, let's be honest, it's always the experience along the way, or the journey, that's a lot more interesting anyway. And is that what actually then matters? That is what maybe modern homesteading is. Whatever it looks like for you or for me is homesteading, that we don't have to actually define it down to something that's very narrow and maybe unachievable for some. You know, why should such a narrow definition make people feel bad about the fact that they're then, oh well, I'm not a homesteader because we're not fully sustainable. So anyway, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that. I've always actually been quite interested in urban self-sufficiency and homesteading. I think that is quite an interesting topic to explore, and I think it's something that, because most people live in urban centres, that is going to make more sense to focus on. But we often, you know, we see on videos, you know, like here, it's a property, you know, it's with 3 acres, not very big, but it's still bigger than the average urban block. But just because you're on an urban block doesn't mean you can't move towards self-sufficiency. All right, well, I think that's enough of I was leaning on a pile of straw. I've got it everywhere on me now. That's enough of my ramblings for today. I do have to move it and get on with things. I've actually got the day off today, but not for anything fun. So you guys take care, and we'll talk to you next time.